the Worship snare drum sound. Now, I know a lot of us worship drummers have been trying to look online, seeing how people process their snare drum to where you get that fat snare drum sound. And honestly, they don't really give a clear answer. And so what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna show you how I process my snare from sounding like this to this. And the process is gonna be so easy that anyone can do it. So let's go. So this is what the snare drum sounds like in the context of a mix. Okay, sounds cool. Okay, now let's look at the snare. What we're gonna do is just go piece by piece. So let's start with the snare top. Okay, this is what the snare top sounds like raw. I gotta be honest, there's a lot of cymbal bleed in that mic position, but nothing than a good old gate will fix that. So that's the first plugin that I'm running on the snare top, is a gate. And the gate that I like to use is Silencer. This is by Black Salt Audio, and I say this is like the best drum gate that there is. So I highly recommend getting this one. So what I'm doing is just go onto the presets, doing their standard snare top setting, and this is what it sounds like with it on. This is what it sounds like off. It makes a world of difference. It's crazy how how much cymbal bleed it takes out. So after I do that, I do the SSL channel. So what I did for this one, I just wanted to try something out other than like the other presets that I normally use. I did the CLA Snare 1 preset, and you can just find that by just going onto the presets, and it should show right there. And I think I did a little something different on the EQ. I think I know I had the bell put on it on the high. I think I just backed it off a little bit and I moved it to 8K. So this is what the EQ sounds like. Bypassed. Just adding some top end and some body to the top of the snare. The gate that I have on there is I'm able to add more top end, because if I didn't have that gate, those hi-hats will be just blaring through there. It's crazy. And then the next thing I got is a compressor, and I used the Universal Audio Distressor, and I'm just using their indie rock snare preset. Nothing else has changed on there. So this is with it on. This is bypassed. Just adds a ton of smack to the top of the snare. Okay, now let's look at the bottom snare. Let me bypass everything, and then this is what the bottom snare mic sounds just raw. It's getting a lot of kick. So my first plugin that I use on there is the Logic gain plugin, but what I'm just doing is just flipping the phase on there, and you really can't tell on here unless the top mic is on. So let me go ahead and put both of those together. Takes out body, you know, just always flip the phase on the bottom snare mic. So the next plugin I got for the bottom snare is a gate, and I'm just using Silencer again. Like I said, best gate ever. I'm just using their snare bottom preset. I don't know if I changed the length or the D-bleed. I think I changed the D-bleed just a little bit, or I may not have. But this is what it sounds like with it on. Oh, sorry. It's doing a ton of stuff. That's crazy. So the next thing I do is the SSL channel. So what I'm doing right there is that I'm just, again, I'm going to their preset, the CLA snare bottom, which is right here. And then the only thing I think of that I changed out of that was the gate that's already on their preset. I just turned that off. And then the compression, I use the same, or I use the fast attack on here. Like I said, it's just the preset already right there. I think I moved a little bit of the high end off, and I moved it more towards 6K. Yeah, that's what it was. I moved it towards 6K because I think it was at 8K or 10K. This is with the EQ and compression on the SSL channel with it on. Off. On. That compressor on the SSL channel, when you have the fast attack, it takes out some of the snap out of the bottom mic, which is good when you're blending the top and bottom mic together. Yeah, it just sounds good together with the top and bottom mixed together. Okay, so the next thing that I do is that I used to always do like a snare sample with it, but just like a dry snare sample. But I looked at a few videos, and just over time I learned that when you're using a snare sample, just do a room snare sample, and it just brings the snare to life. So I honestly forget what snare sample that I'm using, but it's just the room snare, and this is what it sounds like. I know when you're looking for snare samples, you just want something that's just that fat snare. But when you're just doing the air, or I should say the room snare sound, it just adds a ton of character to your raw snare. With it off. Now the next thing that I do on the snare sample is that when I add a reverb, I just add it to the snare sample just cause the consistency is the same every time. So what I got for the snare room, just adding more room to the snare sample, is that I just use their fat snare room preset on the Valhalla Vintage Verb, and there's nothing changed on there. It's the same preset. It's the same preset. Nothing's mixed or anything on there. Added like 8 dB of it. So let's see. With it bypassed. With it on. Yeah, sounds pretty good. So now the next thing is that I take all of those channels and that I create it into a track stack, which is you know, like a summing stack, I think. And then I do a little processing on the main bus of the snare. So I just have that in a folder, you know, snare. And so what I did is that I have the Universal Audio Hitsville EQ mastering, and then I'm just using their snare fat preset. Nothing is changed on there. It's just the preset itself. So this is with it bypassed, and then this is with it on. And this is crazy, y'all. It's crazy how fat it makes that snare. It almost like it glues everything together. I don't know how Universal Audio does it. And then the next thing that I do is parallel compression. What I got on there is just the distressor compressor, and I'm just using Universal Audio's big snare preset on there. Nothing's changed, just the preset itself. So this is what it sounds like. It's just adding more beef to the snare. And then the next thing that I have is a reverb. And you may be listening to this and it's like, bro, why is there so much reverb on that snare? This is in the context of like just getting that fat snare drum sound for worship. I have the sweet snare plate preset on there. Nothing has changed, and I'm adding quite a bit to this. And the snare by itself, it just sounds so reverby, but in the mix it just blends in very well. This is what it sounds like with it on. Huge sounding. And with it off, you know, it sounds really good. So this is what the drums, just the drums itself, sounds like. And this is what it sounds like in the context of a mix. Now, if you want to know how I tuned the snare and mic'd it up, check out this video.